I think you may be. Well, right. So my name is Steven Skultety. I'm an associate professor of philosophy at Ole Miss. I specialize in ancient philosophy, and in particular, I've been working on Aristotle for a number of years. I'm also in my third year of being the chair of the department, and so I already have earned the title long-suffering chair. It's an extraordinary experience that brings up, weirdly enough, lots of questions about honor and dishonor. But today, what I'd like to do is focus on Aristotle's way of thinking about honor, and in particular, his way of thinking about honor in politics, in what I'm going to call political honor. So, first of all, in general, when Aristotle talks about honor, he means the rational esteem. So it has to be esteem that's based in reason, based on your value to your community, and then honor is the expression, is the reward you get as the result of earning that rational esteem. In general, when you're looking at Aristotle's ethics, and you're trying to figure out why does honor have value, why should anyone care about that, it comes out, Aristotle thinks that being esteemed by reasonable and rational people is a non-instrumental good. It's valuable for your soul, and it brings a distinctive kind of pleasure just in its own right. And it's really striking that Aristotle thinks that among the external goods, the goods that are outside of your soul, including health, having friends, things, he calls honor the highest, the most important external good. So it's a rather striking claim that honor is this really important thing for Aristotle, even though it's not as important as happiness, and there are other kinds of goods that are more important. But honor is actually a very important good. Now, because honor tracks the different communal value, and Aristotle thinks there's different kind of communities, so too then Aristotle ends up thinking that there are lots of different kinds of honors, depending on which community you're talking about. And so for sake of this paper, I'm focused on the kind of honor you earn in a political community, that is, in a city where rational people come together not only to secure their basic biological goods and their practical goods, but also for the opportunity of being able to exercise the rational soul as a virtuoso, namely to exercise human virtue. He thinks cities have unique value in that they allow you to exercise your rational soul in all these remarkable ways. And it's notable that he thinks there's actually two kinds of civic honors. There's the honors that are doled out for political reasons on the basis of how much virtue you exercise vis-a-vis your fellow peers. And he also thinks there's philosophical honors, which is a tradition I think we should revive. But I bet it'll never happen. But anyway, since no one cares about philosophy or philosophical honors, I'm going to focus on political honors. So first of all, remember how Aristotle thinks about politics. What does it mean to be in a political community? It means you're in a community of people who are your natural equals. So it's unique. Aristotle thinks there's a lot of communities out there where he thinks there's natural subordination and superiority. But he thinks a political community is one where you don't have that kind of natural ranking. Nature doesn't help you there. In a political community, the ranking has to come from something else, right? And so one popular theory is that it should come from how much wealth you have, or what parents you were born to. And Aristotle's way of thinking is that in a political community, it's best to have political honor tracking how much virtue you have. Now, the big point I make in this paper is that when Aristotle thinks about the offices, the political offices in government in a city, he thinks of those political offices as being honors. So it's not that when you're in government you have a job, and if you do that job well, you could win honor. That happens too. But Aristotle thinks just serving in government, just being in office is a great honor. Because it shows that you're kind of the locus of communal esteem. So you can think of, when Aristotle thinks of government, he kind of thinks of this, kind of network of how people esteem each other and look up to each other. Some are very high, some are lower, but there's a hierarchy of kind of humane esteem. And that's really how he thinks about a political office. And so notice this quotation, the first quotation in the kind of middle of the left-hand side. When he's worrying about, well, how are, when a community is deciding how many offices there should be, should we have a monarchy? Should we have an aristocracy? Should we have a democracy? Notice one of the things he worries about is, well, people are going to be very interested in these because they're honors. We have to keep that on the plate as something to worry about. So look at the first quotation. What would happen if we just put a few virtuous people in charge in our political community? He says, but should decent people rule and have authority over everything? Well, in that case, everyone else must be deprived of honors by being excluded from political office. For offices are positions of honors, positions of honor, we say. And when the same people always rule, the rest must necessarily be deprived of honors. But is it better that the one who is best should rule? But this is even more oligarchic, since those deprived of honors are more numerous. So you can see he's worried about, it's not just a question of power, it's a question of honors. He's worried about depriving people of honors. Now, he contrasts this proper way of thinking about political office from the way he thinks most people think of political office. And so here in the second quotation, he's describing how he thinks, he's talking about ancient Greek farmers. And he's saying that when they think of government office, they just think of drudge work, work that's just toilsome, and that there's no payoff for it. So, and in their mind, the only thing that kind of job could have going for it would be some kind of monetary payoff, all right? And so notice how Aristotle doesn't like this idea. He says these farmers, find working more pleasant than engaging in politics and holding office, because there's no great profit to be had from office, since the many seek money more than honor. Evidence of this is that they even put up with the ancient tyrannies and continue to put up with oligarchies so long as no one prevents them from working or takes anything away from them. For in no time some of them become rich, while the others at least escape poverty. Besides, having authority over the election and inspection of officials will give these people, these farmers, what they need if they do have any love of honor, right? So notice, it's this kind of amazing idea, is that people aren't going to care what the government looks like, the shape of government, if they don't care about honor. As long as you stay out of their stuff, they're fine. They're fine with that. But as soon as they do care about honor or love honor, they want to be part of government in some way, even if it's only by participating in elections or being part of an auditing process and holding officials accountable. So once you understand that Aristotle thinks of political rule itself as a kind of political honor, you can appreciate why he makes this extraordinary claim in the Ethics, where he says that honor is the telos of political life, the end of political life. Why would he say that? Well, the idea is that political honor isn't just a way of the capstone at the end of a great political career or something like that. It's the final applause for being involved in politics. It's rather that the network of the way people esteem one another structures political communities. It's the way political honors are laid out and distributed that actually ends up explaining different political orders. So anyway, in summary, just to this Aristotelian part of my paper, you can see that political honor isn't just a patina of goodwill that one receives as a prize after the fact for a job well done. That honor would be kind of a meta-honor, and it's distinguishable from honor one receives simply as a participant in a network of esteem that structures the political life of people who are naturally equal to one another. All right. Now, so that's the way I open up the paper. In part 2 of my paper, I then ask, when we turn to liberal political theory, is there anywhere in liberal political theory, if you think of it as a jigsaw puzzle, and you think of Aristotelian political honor as this piece in a jigsaw puzzle, is there any way we could fit the Aristotelian political honor into the puzzle? Could we find a conceptual home for it, where you'd say, I want to understand political honor. Okay, I need to turn and look to liberal theory to understand this. Is there a way of doing that? And my basic answer is, I don't rule it out. I don't think it's impossible. I just, my paper says I can't figure out any way to do it. Yeah, I can't figure out a way to do this easily. It seems to be some natural conceptual obstacles to doing this. So let me go through a few of those here. So the first one is, you might think it's easy to incorporate political honor into liberalism in just this way. You say, look, liberalism tells you what justice is. We will give honor to those who implement justice. Right? The more you're a justice implementer, the more rational esteem you should receive. There we go. All right, it fits right into the theory, no problem. And maybe there is a kind of a liberal honor that would be just that. That's fine. But it wouldn't be that Aristotelian political honor that he's talking about, because he thinks of political honor as something that involves ranking and superiority. And moreover, he thinks that an honor seeker is someone who wants to be just, but that's just a necessary condition. It's not sufficient. Rendering justice isn't enough. You've got to do more than that to win honor. And there's a quotation there I've put from the Politics, Book 7, where Aristotle's explicitly saying that rendering justice is definitely an act of virtue, but it's what we'd call a qualified use of virtue. It's something you have to do, but it's not the kind of way you could, aspire to the highest kind of life. As he says, on the other hand, just actions that aim at honors and prosperity are unqualifiedly noblest. So the idea here is just that for Aristotle, honor is more than just the scutcheon of justice. It amounts to something more than that. So we need to look elsewhere. So here's the next. So that's the first way it doesn't fit into the puzzle. Here's another reason to maybe think we couldn't find a place for Aristotelian political honor in liberal theory, which is, look at the value that liberalism picks as its default priority value, liberty, right? There are other competing conceptions of political philosophy that say, well, yeah, liberty is important, but I would put the most important value as, maybe non-domination or community, or something else deserves that. Something besides liberty deserves that top spot. But liberalism is defined, I think, by its prioritizing freedom rather than some other value. And the idea here is, the natural worry is, gosh, if you prioritize freedom, isn't that going to lead to people ignoring things like honor and political honor? And in the same way that socialists, right, have always worried that, gosh, if you prioritize freedom, will society really be able to honor equality in any robust way? Won't the protection of freedom necessarily mean that there's no way for people genuinely to be equal to one another? Some people are going to come out on top, some people are not. Some people are going to be rich, and some people are going to be poor. But famously, the way liberalism has done a great job of accommodating that socialist worry, right, is to say, we can have equality and liberty too, in the following way. No one can truly be free if you're desperately poor, right? No one can exercise freedom in a meaningful way if you don't have any resources. So the way liberalism has accommodated that kind of egalitarian or socialist worry is just to say, having property is an enabling good, right, that everyone should have to some degree, so that they can turn around and be free. So liberty still ends up being the default priority value. It's still the most important thing in our political system, and now equality comes in and just helps, in a robust way. So one strategy you might think is, well, could we bring political honor in like that? We could say that someone has to have political honor so that they can turn around and exercise freedom in a meaningful way. Would that strategy work? And my basic fear there is that no, it wouldn't, because you'd turn your political philosophy into a kind of republicanism. If you say that having political honor is a necessary condition to leading a free life, and political honor means serving in political office, you're basically espousing a kind of political philosophy that says that the only free people are ones who are serving in government. And there are political philosophies that bite that bullet and say, yes, I believe that's true, but it isn't liberalism that's going to do that. So I don't think that's going to be a good strategy. So how about this? Again, inspired by Rawls, what about if we used kind of a difference principle? In the same way that Rawls says it's okay if you have a society with unequal amounts of wealth, because allowing unequal amounts of wealth actually helps people who are the worst off. Right? That's the reason we allow differences of wealth inequality, is because it actually helps people who are on the very bottom. And that in turn, right, allows them to be free. So again, freedom ends up being the most important thing. And we're going to allow differences in wealth into our society only to the extent that it'll help people who are the worst off. And again, so could we bring political honor in that way? And argue something like, we need political honor in our society, we need inequalities in who esteems whom, to the extent that it helps those who are the worst off. And insofar as we do that, we'll be helping them to be free. We need government hierarchies, because that will help the people at the bottom achieve the freedom that everyone should deserve. And my basic worry about that kind of strategy is that, first of all, it just seems cheap. Just because a liberal embraces the difference principle in wealth inequalities, that's not really a way of liberalism as such, bringing in a theory of how we should have wealth inequalities, or how inequalities in wealth should be distributed, or how we should have an economic theory that could explain how differences in wealth could help. That's a way of showing how liberalism can live with economics. It's not a way of bringing economic thought into the theory of liberalism. And so my point here is, this kind of strategy would show how liberalism can live with theories of hierarchy of honor, but it's not really a strategy for bringing inequality in political honor into the theory of liberalism itself. It's just a way of showing that they could live together in the same person. But the other maybe more catastrophic worry here is that I think liberalism can easily accept the idea that we need inequality in political power for the sake of helping the least well off. But I think liberals can live with that idea. I don't think liberals, though, can live with the idea that we need to accept inequalities in honor and some people being ethically superior to other people for the sake of helping the worst off. Because liberalism as a theory values freedom of all, and we all should have freedom equally. So where would our compass for ethical superiority come from within liberal theory? I just don't think you're going to find it there. So for those reasons, I have trouble fitting in this idea of Aristotelian political honor into the liberalism as a theory of politics. Certainly not in a person who's a liberal, because that person could also believe other things, but in the theory of liberalism. The other worry I have, and this is then the section I call all honor to the umpire. The other worry I have about the ability of liberalism to accommodate Aristotelian political honor, and I'll just kind of skip through this quickly because I want to leave time for questions. But the basic idea is this. Liberalism takes itself as the answer to the question of how can free and equal people live with one another, right, as free and equal people. And the answer liberalism gives is, well, they're going to live under rules set up by a state that will keep their liberty as great as possible, and those rules should be applied impartially and universally to all people. But as soon as that's kind of the liberal response, the worry here is that liberalism sets up the state, or sets up some notion of a sovereign, in the position of an umpire who's going to take all of our conflicts we have with one another, and it's going to set itself up as just an adjudicator, as someone who as a powerful entity who's going to implement the rules and keep the game fair. But it's not going to intervene in who's the winner or the loser in the games that we play with one another in society, right? Because liberalism, as I understand it, doesn't want to be involved in that kind of thing. But as soon as it does that, what it ends up doing is saying, look, the umpire figure, the sovereign, the Leviathan, the state, has to be far more powerful and be far more respected than any of the contestants in any of the games we play with one another. And as a result of that, all honor and all the idea of political honor shifts right up to the sovereign, to the state, to the Leviathan. And all the honor that might to accrue to people based on whether they've won or the dishonor they've accrued by losing in any particular game and competition we have, that ends up just seeming like nothing. It seems like kind of child's play by comparison to the greatness of the state. And I go through, and Hobbes explicitly says this. Look at this last quotation on the bottom of the left-hand side of the handout there, where Hobbes says, "As to the power, so also the honor of the sovereign ought to be greater than that of any or all of the subjects. For in the sovereignty is the fountain of honor. The dignities of lord, earl, duke, and prince are his creatures. As in the presence of the master, the servants are equal and without any honor at all, so are the subjects in the presence of the sovereign. And though they shine some more, some less, maybe you won a few, you lost a few, when they are out of his sight, yet in his presence they shine no more than the stars in the presence of the sun," right? So serving as a this or that public official, winning this or that competitive election, doing this, that's nothing. Compared to sovereignty, that's where all the honor goes. That's where all the superiority goes. So, in other words, Aristotelian honor just gets kind of not only transcended by the liberal state, but it gets crushed as something that's just kind of child's play and just kind of greasy politics, not the kind of thing that really deserves your esteem. Final point. So what? Who cares? I get questions. As someone who studies ancient philosophy, I have to answer this question all the time, right? Steve, why are you studying Aristotle? Who cares about it? And you might, that's reasonable. Liberalism is clearly the winner of political philosophies. It defines the aspirations of all contemporary nation states in the West, I think. So, okay, so Steve, you've come along, you've said liberalism doesn't fit and it can't accommodate with Aristotelian honor. Sucks for Aristotelian honor. Why don't we just write the obituary for Aristotelian honor and get on with it? It lost in the battle of ideas. But let me end with this. Has it? And let me suggest to you that our contemporary democracy, the way it actually works, is basically an Aristotelian honor system. And so just notice the following points. Democracy means rule by the people, and in a contemporary large state like ours, what does it mean for the people to rule? It means that they go to the ballot box and they cast votes in competitive elections. Notice, though, they don't vote for policies alone, right? The candidates, we don't get a set of white papers and we vote among the white papers. We vote among people. We're voting for one person over another person. Not just policies. And that means we're evaluating their characters, their personalities, or, to go Aristotelian on you, their virtues, right? So we're esteeming people on the basis of their virtue, right, for our political community. Sounds like Aristotelian political honor. And lo and behold, Aristotle thought honors just go to a few people in our community. Well, and so too, the number of people in our elective system the number of winners in our elections are very few compared to the number of people there are in society. And notice too, that when in elections, notice what's going on. One of the basic strategies you use is that you try to show that your opponent is not worthy of the office and that you are worthy of the office. And that's a very Aristotelian kind of idea. The office itself has honor, and my opponent here couldn't live up to it. And that's a classic virtue competition, a classic competition built, I think, on the idea that the office itself is a kind of honor that only certain kind of human beings should be able to hold. So at the end of the day, I think it is a problem maybe for liberalism if it can't accommodate Aristotelian political honor, if in fact our competitive systems in democracies are indeed very Aristotelian. Liberalism wouldn't be saying anything about this important part of our political lives. All right, I'll stop there. Yeah, Dan.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, you can think of like